So I don't know where I sit on that all the time.
Yeah, I really like the Ask Twice campaign that was around a while ago. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just wonder if they recognise through seeing, a change in your behaviour, they might recognise that there's something they've done, but they might not be ready to accept that they've got a mental health problem or issue where, they because there is such a stigma attached that if you say, oh, I feel depressed or I feel anxious, then people's attitudes can change towards you drastically very quickly. Whereas, if they recognise something in your actions that they might not, let's say, be able to actually admit to themselves. It's, as you say, it's such an individual thing. I know that when I've spoken to some people, there'll be elements of their behaviour that I recognise and I'm able to empathise with them. But crikey, I've felt like that as well. And so you're able to then build up a sort of conversation around that. And like you say, Hel, with the Ask Twice, the amount of times when, and I know I've been guilty of it myself. If you need anything, just shout. But I know that when I was having my worst times, that's the last thing I wanted to do. I want people to see the pain in my eyes to say, are you all right? Because I didn't have the strength to say to them, please, will you give me a hand here? I need some help. So that Ask Twice is so vitally important.
We all do it, and we always say, but people don't have. Loads of people will have said that to me. Oh, I'm here if you need me. It's like, yeah, but I can't ask you, so I need you to offer things.
Yeah.
And also, I would have been embarrassed about the things that I actually needed. So, I particularly at the time was absolutely terrible at preparing myself any meals, and really, that felt embarrassing to me because I was a grown adult with perfectly capable of preparing meals, but I just didn't at the time. I just couldn't do it, and I felt like. But what I also didn't want to eat with other people because that's a social situation I didn't have the energy for. So what I really wanted them to do was bake me a meal and drop it off and leave. But you feel like you can't ask for that.
No.
But, yeah, I mean, I'd still have that now. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about today was question 9, which said, do you think people with mental health problems face discrimination in the same way that many disabled people do? For example, things not being easily accessible. So we've got 56% said yes, they do think people with mental health problems face discrimination in the same way. 39% said the barriers would be different, but they still agreed with the overall sentiment. So yeah, you've only got 4% said no and 9% said other, but having to look through those, they sort of seem to point out specific barriers. It does seem overwhelmingly like people do think that, which I think again is just so interesting that they still don't consider themselves disabled, even though they see themselves facing just as many barriers as who they consider disabled people are. So I suppose I'd be interested to know who they consider disabled people to be. So I think we'll have to ask some more questions, but I think it's a really good insight, because some of the other questions, didn't surprise me. It was so overwhelmingly no on, do you think there's enough support? Which I think we hear all the time. So but yeah, it'd be interesting to explore some of those perceptions with those answers. I think they're all linked.
Yeah, I think having spoken to you as well, I know some of the barriers that people face, but I'd be quite interested to find out what those barriers are. People with ill mental health, what they feel those barriers are. and try and delve a bit deeper into that, because I suppose that then ties in with the social model. Once we know what those barriers are, then actually what can other people do to break down some of those barriers?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of missing language, I think, that is yet to be developed. But I think the sort of next generation will solve, and that's everyone wants that, don't they? The next generation will solve that. But I think in my time, language has evolved enormously, and I think more so than in my parents' generation.
Yeah.
Because of the use of text and then social media, and then our access to other language. And I think when it comes to disability, there's lots of language that is yet to be sort of brought in and implemented into society, and because I think that's part of the problem when people don't know how to tell someone about their mental health, is because there aren't really, it doesn't feel to me like there are that many words or phrases that accurately portray what it is that I've got going on. And I remember when I came back after some time off, when I was at Equal Lives, and HR Sarah, as she was at the time, said to me, I kept sort of using all this weird language about, oh yeah, no, I've had, this has been going on for years, or yeah, no, I've had this for ages, or yeah, I've always felt like this. Yeah, but like what? Like, what are you actually telling me? And I thought, well, I don't know. Like, I just didn't know how to tell her, because I didn't know what were, and I still don't really know. I know what all of the individual symptoms were, and I know how it affected me, but I don't know what it was. And I don't think if I said, oh well, I'm depressed, I don't think that is enough to encompass everything that I was going through, because lots of people are very high functioning and depressed, and other people are completely suicidal and depressed, and there's this massive scale. And it doesn't, if I said to you I'm depressed, you'd have no idea where I sit on that. And most people tend to jump to, oh god, like it must be, or they think, oh yeah, but you're all right though, because you seem fine. And there's this whole middle ground, and the language is really grey, and I don't really think it gets it across. And there's and I think disability as well, I think the same thing is that the word disabled and the word disability have got so many negative connotations for people. Their perceptions have been shaped for years and years about what that means, and we've only just really moved away from cripple, handicap. I mean, in the US they still very much seem to use that language, from what I can tell, and we're only just seeming to move away from. And I think that disabled will change or evolve and move on, but I think it's really difficult for it to be reclaimed. In some language around sexuality and things has been reclaimed really successfully, but I think given that lots of disabled people can't actively participate in society because of all the barriers that they're facing, that movement is sort of being held back a bit, because really it's not their responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility, and we're sort of not got there yet. So sorry, I've talked for a really long time. Any thoughts?
No, it's very interesting what you're saying there. There's a lot to, whilst things are moving, it's always going to be at a pace that you don't think's moving quickly enough. But consider, like you say, your parents' generation, or my parents' generation, compared to how it was then to when I was growing up to how the language is now. It is moving, but it's not necessarily moving quickly enough. And it's
always, you always want.
Yeah, exactly. But I think by raising awareness about this, and particularly raising awareness about the social model and mental ill health, I think that will open a lot of people up to being able to, you know, not necessarily identify solely as that, but it will give them a very good understanding, and will hopefully mean that, you know, society is a bit more inclusive. And that's the thing, because as you say, if you talk to somebody about their mental health, as you say, it's either they're high functioning or they're suicidal. There's no sort of middle ground, because you're thinking, well, if you're depressed, you should either be that or that. You can't just be functioning. Whereas, well, then you must be all right because you aren't feeling like suicidal, so you can't be that depressed. It's like, well, there's so many different layers and levels and experiences. I think it's about getting people to understand this and make people aware of it.
Looking at it around suicide, because I remember when it was Matthew, he used to talk about it quite a lot, and some of our sort of friendship group used to say, "Oh, yeah, people who talk about it don't do it," and it's like, oh yeah, you know, people who say they're going to do it never actually do it. I don't know where that come from, and why you would rather, oh, they didn't, just don't talk about it, because, you know, it's, yeah. And I remember sort of after he obviously did do it, thinking so much of that has come from the masculinity thing of, well, he couldn't do right for doing wrong, because he did talk about it. He did talk about it, but oh well, don't talk about it, because he couldn't win in that scenario. But yeah, it is interesting, and I think what we were saying the other day, Hessel, about, I don't think that in our working lifetimes, at least, we're gonna get to the point where we can accurately identify the barriers and remove them. I think it's more about what our job to do now is just normalise it, so that it's so normal by the time our children are where we are, that they will then actually be able to identify barriers and remove them. I don't think you know, these things do take time, and we're moving in the right direction, but we're way off it being normalised yet.
Yeah, I think we were saying, weren't we, it's all about the culture of workplaces as well. So you can have training and initiatives, but unless it's embedded in the culture and those day-to-day conversations, then it doesn't.
I still get sort of a bit annoyed about this sometimes, because I know quite a lot about this piece of mental health. People will send their friends to me sometimes, and it only bothers me if they haven't done anything themselves. So they've gone, oh, you've got mental health problems, oh, Kimberly knows about that, go and speak to Kimberly. And part of me gets the sentiment of, oh, I'll point you in the direction of someone who knows, because they'll give you a, I don't know, they might be thinking, well, I don't know, so I'm not the best person for you to talk to. But you are the best person for them to talk to, because you need to learn. If you don't know, you can't just pass it on to someone else. Like, you've got to ask. The only way you're going to learn is by listening to your friends who you've just bypassed yourself. They've opened up to you, which has taken an incredible amount of strength for them to do in the first place. And the first thing you've done is gone, don't know about that. This person does. I don't know them. So all I'm going to give them is my opinion, which is essentially worthless in their situation, because I don't know anything about them. And I sort of get that it's not done with any malice, and that people aren't being horrible, but I do feel a bit like, no, you've got to learn. Like, you've got to ask and listen, and just be there might be enough. That might be all they actually want. That and meals dropped off at the doorstep with no further questions. But yeah, so I do get a bit annoyed about that sometimes, but it's not really relevant anyway. Just thought I'd voice it here.
You're right. they feel they're fulfilling their part of the friendship by, I can't help you, so I'm gonna, like you say, they're suggesting signposting them to someone else, when in actual fact the friend probably just wants them just to listen, just to be there, because they know the context, they've got the background of their friendship to be able to go, I feel comfortable enough to open up to you. All I want you to do is sit there and just listen. Don't have an opinion, don't judge, just listen. Let me just get it out, and then we can then sort of see how we can move forward. But it's friends knowing that they've got the strength themselves to be able to do that for somebody who they think, are they in crisis? How serious is this?
Yeah.
You know, because they haven't got exactly, because they've not got the awareness necessarily of the sliding scale of what they might be feeling. They think, well, if I say something, it could make them go to completion. It might, exactly. So it is difficult, but it is something where it is again that magic word of awareness, and just normalizing these things, so that, again, like Helen was saying, the ask twice, it's such a important thing, and letting people who you know have got mental health conditions or issues, that you know they can open up to them to listen. And I think that's what most of us want, is just somebody just to listen, so we can just get it out of our own minds, so that, you know, there's room for other things.
Yeah. That seems like a good ending. What I'll do is I'll put a card up on the screen with some information if anybody needs any resource as a result of this. And that's not to direct everyone somewhere else. Always welcome to talk to us as well, but I'll put it up just so it's there. And yeah, we'll follow up on more about our campaign very soon.